Hello everyone, this is Saqib Khan, Principal and Founding Partner at Spannovation Bridge and Seismic School. Today I want to talk to you about one of the basic principles used in seismic engineering. It is known as the equal displacement principle. So this is not a principle that's derived in mathematics, it's more of an observational principle. However, a lot of different codes in the world use this principle for seismic design. It has its application primarily in force-based design, but it also finds some application within the performance-based design. So let's have a look at what this is all about. What I have drawn here is a simple schematic of two single degree of freedom oscillators, two simple systems that have the same initial period. And if you look at this graph, this is a force displacement graph. Now one system, which is the elastic system, is going to behave along this red line. The other system, which is the elastoplastic system, is going to behave along this red-blue line. So the basic assumption we have is that when an earthquake of a certain magnitude or intensity comes along, the elastic system will basically keep its initial stiffness. It will not have any damage, and it's going to displace through this range of displacement, which I have denoted as delta E. The force level in the elastic system is going to be Fe. Now, the elastoplastic system behaves differently. This system has an elastic component delta Y and a plastic component delta P. What the equal displacement principle assumes is that the system in red, which is the elastic system, and the system in red-blue, which is the elastoplastic system, will have the same total displacement. So even though the two systems have different strength levels, they are going to have the same displacement. Now this observation has been made for many structures that lie within a certain period range. And that period range can be thought of really as something that's beyond 0.6 seconds. So if your fundamental period is larger than about 0.6 to 0.7 seconds, this principle will mostly hold. As you start to bring the period back, there is a difference between the elastic system displacement and the elastoplastic system displacement. So how can we use this little illustration to understand this principle a little better and how it might be used or applied within seismic design or a seismic design code? I would like you to focus on two triangles in this illustration. One is ECA and the other one is FBA. You can see that these two triangles are similar triangles. So I can easily write the ratios of their sides to be equal. So I can say that the perpendicular of this triangle divided by the base of this triangle is equal to the perpendicular of this triangle and the base of this triangle. So I can write EC divided by AC equal to FB divided by AB. And now let's just substitute what the different values are in terms of force and displacements for these sides. You can see that EC is equal to the elastic force level. So I can say Fe over delta E is equal to Fb, which is equal to Fy, i.e. the strength of the elastoplastic system, over AB, which is delta Y. Now I can rearrange this. I can bring Fy to this side, take delta E to the other side, and what I have is Fe over Fy equals delta E over delta Y. So what does this ratio mean? This is the ratio of the strength of the elastic system divided by the strength of the elastoplastic system. And that is known as the force reduction factor, which we denote by R. Now delta E is the elastic system displacement, and delta Y is the yield displacement of the elastoplastic system. And this indeed is known as the ductility of the system, which we denote by the factor mu. Now, what does all this mean? What it really means is that instead of designing a system to be this strong and have it stay elastic for an earthquake, I could design it for a much lower force. I could design it for a reduction factor that is determined by this ratio and is given by R. So I could say this is 1/2 or 1/4 or 1/8 of what the elastic system would be designed to. What is the penalty I pay? I will have a system which does not behave elastically and will have some damage accumulation. How much damage accumulation? That simply depends on how large the R factor is. Of course, if the R factor is 1 and the system is elastic, there will be no damage. Now, the more the R is, the higher the mu is, i.e., I need to incorporate more and more ductility into my system if I keep reducing the force level for which I'm going to design my system. And you can clearly see if my R is equal to 8, my ductility has to be 8 times, i.e., it needs to have 8 times the displacement capacity of its yield displacement. Okay, so that just means that if I were to design a system for this force level, now look, this line or this zone, it's much longer, let me call it GH, than FD. So you can reduce the strength even further. The penalty you're paying is that you are going to have to impart more ductility to your system. Now, you will keep hearing this from me over and over again. As a designer, you are in control. You are the one who is going to make your structure behave in a certain manner. So you could make it behave elastically all the way up to that point. That might mean a lot of upfront cost. And this does not necessarily mean that your structure is going to behave in a resilient manner. That's a conversation for another day. Just designing stuff to be super strong does not mean that it is going to behave in a desirable fashion under seismic conditions. On the other hand, reducing the strength too much might mean that you have to incorporate a lot of ductility in your system. So it has to be a balance of the two. Now the codes recognize this and they want you to design for a force level which is not as high as the elastic level, because that means you're going to have to invest a lot of upfront money and the performance may not be as desirable as you want. One of the things that's related to is the capacity design principle, where having too much strength becomes difficult to manage to capacity protect elements that are not designed for inelastic action and having ductility in them. So just to sum this all up, what the codes do is they do not require you to design for the elastic level. They would like you to design for a force reduction factor which is enshrined in the codes, and then give you some detailing practices that make sure that for a given force reduction factor you have enough ductility so that your structure can traverse this AFD path, this elastoplastic path, so that at the end of the day you're able to meet the displacement that the earthquake is going to put your structure through. And that is a brief introduction to the equal displacement principle and one of its basic applications. Thank you.